All right, welcome back to the next episode of Conversations with the Pros. Greg Garza and Michael Parkhurst, Beyond Goals Mentoring. Today we are bringing you another former teammate of ours from Atlanta United, somebody who is just crushing it in MLS right now, playing for the national team, linked to big teams abroad right now. So Brandon Vazquez, we're excited to speak with him today.
Brandon Vazquez, someone who I have personally known from a very young age, and someone I have seen come through the ranks and understanding the importances of being best pro possible, and someone who has really been able to cherish every opportunity he has had in front of him. We look forward to chatting with Brandon and understanding what he thinks, what's in his mindset, how he carries himself on and off the field, and the habits and routines he creates to be the most confident player he can be every single game. Enjoy, guys.
First question from me would be, so you turned pro at a really young age, right? And so the goal, I'm sure ever since you started kicking a soccer ball, maybe was to turn pro, right? And then you finally get there. What was the expectation when you turned pro? What was the reality? What was the difference between those two things, right? Because, we talk to kids a lot about like setting a goal to get somewhere, but then they achieve it and they forget like, oh, shoot, getting here isn't the ultimate goal, it's a goal, right? And then how do you have success once you get there?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think signed my first professional contract when I was 15 in Tijuana, and my expectation was coming into the first team and playing right away. And the reality is that it wasn't like that at all. There's a lot of players that are already in favor with coaches, or that have already a lot of experience and that are already like have a name for themselves, and their play is just on another level because they've been playing at that level for a long time. So yeah, going into the first team in Tijuana, I was just kind of taking it step by step, not knowing what to expect and trying my best to break into the first team, getting some minutes, and then going to Atlanta. And it was the same thing. I kind of went over expecting like, oh, Atlanta's buying me, I'm going to come in and play right away. And it wasn't that way either. Joseph Martinez was there, and everybody knows Joseph. He's banging 2-3 goals a game. So yeah, like you said, it's just one goal, reaching that, but to then have the next goal, which is have some minutes, and then being able to score goals, which in my case, that's my position, center forward, is scoring goals. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it for sure.
Yeah, and I like how you say it, because I think that's a lot of young players, right? You have that expectation because like we all were the best players on our teams growing up, right? For most of our lives. And then you turn pro and all of a sudden, or you go to college and you're playing with guys that are older than you and have more experience, and all of a sudden you're not the best, or you might not even be starting, or you might not even make the roster. And what that does to you or can do to you mentally. I think that we had a bunch of young guys in Atlanta when you were there and you were young, who went through similar experiences, right? And are not in the place that you are today. Them aside, what was the difference, right? How did you persevere and get to where you are today, given like the struggle that it was to get consistent playing time and score some goals and things like that?
I think for me, it was creating a routine and knowing that I needed to prepare myself for the best opportunity I was going to get, knowing whether it was going to be in Atlanta or here in Cincinnati or getting sent on loan to Charleston, which happened for a couple games. You never knew when you were going to get your opportunity. And so all the work you do, you kind of have to do it for yourself and not for your coaches, not for I know some people, their dad is on their mind a lot, you know, like you kind of have to do it for yourself. Because at the end of the day, if you work to improve yourself, like that hunger never ends, you know. There's always that hunger to want to get better and better and better. And there just won't be a ceiling for you, you know, if you're doing something for somebody else and not for yourself, you're never going to feel fulfilled, or you're going to feel like no motivation to do it at all at some point, especially if you're not getting that recognition. So you kind of have to just do it for yourself and just wait for your opportunity. You know, that's kind of what I did. And yeah, sometimes it was hard to find motivation, showing up to training, being the best forward in training, scoring the most goals, and still not getting the opportunity in the weekend for the game. You know, a lot of times that happened, and it was frustrating, but I kept pushing myself in training and pushing myself to be the best that I could be. And when the opportunity finally came along, I was ready for it.
You know, we're not surprised, because we saw the work ethic firsthand. We saw somebody in you that took care of their body, that was always in the gym, was always in the ice bath, doing things after training, right? So we're not surprised that you got there, but it's nice to hear from your perspective. And one of the people that we talk about all the time is Chris Wondolowski, because of his pathway and his trajectory. And I don't even know if you know, but in his first 5 years as a pro, he scored 7 goals total.
Really? No way.
7 goals in 5 years.
I had no idea.
Yeah. And so it was just a little bit of a similarity to you, right? Whereas like he turned pro, but he didn't get his opportunity. Things just didn't go his way in the beginning, right? And then like he started, the year before he took off, he actually started a bunch of games, only scored a few goals. And then the next year he scored, I don't know how many, 15, 18, and then was just, on a tear from there.
Yeah.
But similar pathway. So that's cool.
Yeah. Brandon, my question for you, Brandon, is, obviously knowing you for so long and seeing you go through different phases within your career as a young player. I think confidence is one thing we always talk about, right? I think being one of your teammates, one of your good friends, I've seen you go through moments to where you're extremely confident, moments to where you're kind of doubting that confidence. But I seem to always, I look at you and I always seem to find a way you keep climbing that ladder of feeling confident. I mean, as of right now, I would say you're such a confident player, man. How do you feel you have gained that confidence over time? And even I can recall moments of, like you said, finally getting that opportunity in Atlanta. And I think the first minute you got on after that one opportunity, I think you got a red card. You remember that moment?
Yeah.
And so it's like you finally get that moment of opportunity to where you're like, okay, it's finally there. And then boom, all of a sudden it's back down to ground zero. And you're like, man, how do you feel like you dealt with those moments and still keeping that confidence and saying, hey, I just got to keep grinding out day in, day out. And that confidence will come, that confidence will build to give me that opportunity again, and what you've done fantastically now.
Yeah, confidence is a tricky thing, because I feel like I'm on a career high right now too. But for me personally, if I go a couple games without scoring, I feel like my confidence starts like wavering a little bit. And so I would say confidence is so important, because when you feel confidence, you play at your best. And but when you don't, you feel like frustration just builds and builds and builds. And the only way for me to get out of that frustration or to get out of that feeling is to feel prepared, and kind of going back to like doing all the extra stuff, whether it's staying after training, just hitting the net more, staying with the forward coach, doing crosses and finishing. That kind of preparing for me is what gives me confidence coming up to the weekend in the game. If I throughout the week took 100 shots with my right foot, 100 shots with my left foot in the game, when you have that one opportunity and you feel like it's just muscle memory at that point, then at that point, that's what's like, I guess, getting me that confidence. If I get that one opportunity, I know that I've done it so many times that it's just, I don't have to think about it too much. It's just gonna happen for me, and I'm gonna do it the right way. So just preparation would be the biggest thing for me.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think I'll tie that in with, just the responsibility that you have, and I know everybody that follows you knows this, is routine life, right?
Mm.
How do you? I know you're very routine based. You're very habitual, right? Everything you do is habit. It creates good habits for yourself. How do you feel that, over the years from when you first started in Tijuana, when we first met, dude, to now,
Mhm.
how do you feel that responsibility has grown, given the fact that those habits and those routines have been created throughout your career?
For sure. I would say for me, the routines are probably the most important part of my career right now. If I don't take care of my body, mentally and physically, then I don't feel ready to play. And physically, that's doing my recovery stuff at home. That's making sure I get more than 8 hours of sleep every night. It's making sure like I'm hydrating, I'm doing all that kind of stuff. And mentally, it's almost the same thing, when you feel like, well, at least for me, leading up to a game, if I'm having I like to eat the same meal the night before the game. I like to eat the same pregame meal, the same breakfast the day of the game, those kind of routines, so that leading up to a game, that if you're feeling good, you're eating stuff that makes you feel good, that there should be nothing that, I don't know, for example, like if you're eating something that you're not used to eating before the game and then you get a stomach ache or something like that, it's just, I like to know that if I'm in a routine that nothing will affect me that I already don't know that's gonna be happening. So yeah, for me, routine would probably be the most important thing to me.
That's
Totally.
awesome.
Consistency off the field and leading to consistency on the field.
Yeah.
I hear you. Just going back to something you just said, because sometimes I speak with kids who are struggling with confidence, and if they're goal scorers, and we talk about like, well, what comes first, the goals or the confidence, right? Because goals lead to more confidence. Confidence leads to more goals, right? But when you're down and you're struggling, to score goals and your confidence is down, right? It's tougher to score goals, and it's just, the
Yeah.
rabbit,
Yeah.
the chicken or the egg, it's difficult. But I think what you were saying earlier is kind of like you can build the confidence that helps lead to goals through the preparation. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Um, Kind of like what I said, if you feel like if you do it so many times throughout the week, it feels just natural at some point. If you're doing it over and over and over again, you're mastering your craft, it'll just become muscle memory and just come naturally. And in the games, you don't even have to overthink it. You just kind of do it.
Totally.
Um, so yeah, I would say preparation is super, super important.
And the other thing that we speak to some strikers about is, and obviously the number one job is to score goals, of course, right? But you can still have good games if you don't score, right? And still
Yeah.
build confidence without putting the ball in the net. Obviously, it's easiest to gain the confidence when you're scoring, right? But um, have you gone through periods of where, like, have you gotten to a place where you can come in after a game without scoring and say, shoot, I balled today. I was really good today. Or is it still mostly based on goals?
No, for me, it's it's funny you say that because like just a couple games ago we were playing Seattle and I think it was the best game I've had all year, the best game I've had in a long time, and I didn't score, but I was creating a lot of opportunities for my team. I was playing started off the game playing really simple, gain that confidence by playing those simple passes, getting the feel for the game, the rhythm, and then it was my pressing was just on point. We were all over Seattle, and I was making great runs, opening up spaces for my other teammates. And I wasn't getting on the end of a lot of plays, but I was creating a lot for my team, and we ended up winning that game. And we played so much better than Seattle. And I think a big part of it was our front press, and I felt like I was leading that pretty well. And so I would say that's a good example of what you just said. Like I didn't score, but I had one of the best games I've had in a long time.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
small victories lead to bigger challenges, man. So as a
Exactly.
player, you always take those small victories and use them to the best of your ability in the future. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think last thing from me is I saw you post a book about something about the mental side. Was it a tennis player maybe, or
Yeah, the inner game of tennis.
okay, inner game of tennis? So yeah, I actually screenshotted it because I was like, oh, I want to get that. So obviously you already, well, you know about the mental side of the game, how important it is. Learning anything good from that book?
Yeah, yeah, actually a lot. I'm like halfway through it right now since I just started it a couple days ago, but a lot of it was just kind of letting that inner voice of like frustration, of like talking negative to yourself, like kind of letting it just be quiet, and that takes practice a lot.
Totally.
But when you start hearing that, you kind of just want to start thinking positive thoughts, kind of block those negative thoughts, and kind of, because when you're in a game, you're kind of doing like just going with the flow, playing. For me, it's like a lot of muscle memory of stuff. So I'm almost like on autopilot at some points. And if I'm like overthinking, and kind of having negative thoughts in my head, then I feel like I can get clouded judgment sometimes. So in the book, it talks a lot about kind of learning how to quiet that negative thinking.
Awesome. Power of positivity, man. Love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Good stuff,
Positivity
man.
is such a big thing.
Easier said than done,
Cool,
but
man.
even the guys at the very top level are dealing with the same thing that 13-year-olds and 10-year-olds are dealing with. It's never ending. That confidence, battle is always there, right? To the very,
Yeah,
very end of a career. It's so crazy. It's a constant, something we always continually work on.
exactly.
Kids think that, once you have it, right? But I tell the story of like, even Joseph Martinez, I let him score in training sometimes because I could see his confidence was struggling. He was the best at the time. So yeah, it's a constant battle.
For sure. Exactly.
Cool,
Like
man.
I could say like right now this season I've struggled with confidence a bit too. I mean, I work with a sports psychologist, and it kind of helps me um have patience with myself and know that I've already done this kind of stuff. I've scored goals before. I know how to score goals, but yeah, like I said, like if I go a couple games without scoring, it definitely affects me a little bit, and I feel like those negative thoughts start to cloud my judgment. But that's
Yep.
when you have to put out those positive thoughts, think back to the good stuff you've done, and know that you can still do it, and just kind of roll with that.
Absolutely. That's where you lean into the routines and the things that you can control. Yep, totally.
Amen to that, man. Good stuff.